Let me just make sure I'm on. Cool. Yep. Here we are again together live on Facebook and Instagram every Wednesday at noon. Beautiful day in the neighborhood. I'm happy to be here. I've been feeling these like nerves before coming on, which in the beginning I didn't even feel. And now I get these like really, like awesome nervous feelings, these kind of like little rumbles in my chest before I come on live to talk to you guys, because I truly believe the direction I'm going in these conversations are things that I'm working through too. I'm never, well, sometimes I will speak about things that I possibly haven't experienced as much as others, but a lot of what I speak about, I've experienced. A lot of what I talk about and work through with friends, family, and clients are things that I've worked through. So I always get a little nervous coming on because I'm speaking some of my truth and giving you some of how I've healed myself. So I step into places of trauma, and I step into places of interest and worry, and like I talked about last week, my shadows kind of get in my head. So I'm just going to take a breath and start to talk about today's topic, which is stepping out of your story. Again, something that I do on the daily. If you're just joining, say hi. These conversations are always here for you to comment and join the conversation. Today's conversation is stepping out of your story. And this is something that I do every day. If you've heard me talk about Brene Brown, she is a scientist and she works with fear. She works with taking the journey to joy. And she talks about dipping into joy. And that's what I want to talk about today also is dipping out of your story. So many times throughout the day, you get stuck in your story. I get stuck in my story. What is that person going to say? Did I say the right thing to that person? And then my mind just goes. It just goes. How far does it go? Sometimes it continues, and I've built a whole story before a minute has counted down. And that story is what I'm talking about right now. Stepping out of that story that we create that causes the anxiety, that causes the worry, that takes us down this tunnel to nowhere. And does that help you? Does that help me? Definitely not. I'm always, outside when I can be, so we got the neighborhood stopping through. The story that we get stuck in, it's so important to recognize. The first step in stepping out of your story is the recognition that you are in a story. So what story? Again, if you're just popping online, join the conversation. If you've ever felt like you've been in a story, that kind of place where your mind goes when you say something to someone or you have a thought, and then your mind kind of just takes off. For instance, I said something to someone and they didn't really react the way that I wanted them to, right? You open up to someone and you're not really getting the reaction. And then in my mind, it went down the list of all the reasons why they didn't give the reaction, or why they didn't say what I thought they were going to say, or they didn't really come back at me with something that I thought. And then I just went down the list of everything that could have happened, all of the things, like maybe they hate me, maybe they don't like me, and then stories that spawned off of that. These are the stories I'm talking about today, and the stories that we want to kind of start to recognize, start to step out of. And when you start to think of these stories, when you catch yourself in the story that you're creating, that's when the change can occur. So the change that happens, that's the most important part. It's not really changing your story at this point. If you're not used to stopping the story right away and changing, it's the recognition that you have a story and that you're stepping into it. That gap between recognizing you have a story and then all of a sudden the 5 minutes of you thinking about the anxiety and the worry, that's the story. That gap is going to shorten over time. It's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller until you can immediately recognize that you're starting a story and step out of that story. But you want to make sure, and I make sure for myself, that I don't get down on myself because I've stepped into a story, because I've stepped into anxiety or I've stepped into worry. I never get down on myself. I just understand that this is something I'm doing, and this is something that I want to commit to changing. If you felt this, if you're joining me, hi everyone, if you're joining me, we're talking about stepping out of the story that you create for yourself, stepping out of the anxiety, stepping out of the worry, stepping away from the constant tick, tick, tick of the mind. If that's something you've experienced, let me know. Type in the box, say hi. When I go live on Facebook and Instagram, it's not a verbal conversation that we can have, but I'm here, I'm reading everything that you guys type in, answering, thanks for the love, answering everything that you guys ask. I come on Wednesdays to have a conversation about healing through Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a very wide umbrella. It encompasses the mind, the body, and the spirit. So the conversations that I have are not just about herbs that you can take or food that's going to help you digest. A lot of it can be where your mind is and how to heal the mind, how to heal the anxiety, how to heal worry. We all deal with this on the daily. And if you don't, I would like you to take a moment to have some introspection and really think about why you might be saying no, or where are you really? Are you even accepting that you might sometimes be on this hamster wheel? I think it's important to recognize when we get onto the hamster wheel, when we get into the story. It can really take us for a whirl. It takes me for a whirl when I let my mind go, when I let the story build into this incredible, I'm going to say lie, because it hasn't happened yet. The stories that we create for ourselves, the stories that push us into this darkness, those stories haven't happened yet. That's our mind creating anxiety, creating worry. It's such a beautiful feeling when you can stop yourself in the midst of that creation and change direction. It's really important that you do that for yourself. And it's so important. And I love when I can do that for myself. If you're just joining, I'm going to be on for just a few more minutes. Type in the box. Let me know if you've experienced this. I know I'm not the only one. If you have experienced letting your mind kind of just wander and go and dip into not joy, but the opposite, anxiety, worry, let me know if you've experienced that feeling of letting the mind just go. It's so important to shorten the gap between when you realize you're letting the mind go and the story that it creates. So the minute that you step into that anxiety, you step into that worry, your mind starts to create this story. It could feel like 5 minutes that you've been sitting there like creating this horrible story of what's going to happen to you when that person finally gets back to you. That's the story I'm talking about. That short amount of time that feels like such a big amount of time, really working to shorten that gap. If you're just joining me, type in the box. Let me know you're here. Don't just be a ghost. At least say hi. I come on again Wednesday. It used to be Tuesdays. I come on every Wednesday to have a conversation, to have a platform so you can voice opinions, voice concerns, voice your ideas about what our community is going through in terms of, mental health, physical health, spiritual health, and not, relating to a deity or a God, but, your higher power, your spiritual self, like where you connect, who you connect to, the energies in the universe. All of these beautiful energies that we connect with. That's what I mean by spirit. So again, stepping out of your story, that story that we create, that story that takes you away from your true self. The first step in stepping out of your story is recognizing that you go into a story, recognizing that your shadows show up and they take you down a road, and then all of a sudden you are in trauma, where way back here in real life, none of that has even happened yet. So, if you have a story and you are not wanting to post it live, or you have a question and you don't want to post it live, just direct message me, find me on Instagram or Facebook, and start a conversation with me. This is what I love to do. I've always loved to do this. Even back in the day, 2008, when I was a hairstylist behind the chair, I loved communicating with people and bringing out their story, letting there be a safe space for stories to be heard, and empathizing with you. That's where my heart is. It's what I love. So today is over. I'm ending this conversation, but the conversation never really ends. It's back every Wednesday. And again, if you just want to reach out, do so. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I will see you next time. Bye. Do, 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 do.